All right, so finally, let's talk about two movies. One of which that I would have gone. Actually, I would say both of them. I would have loved to see on big screen. The first one, just admittedly, if I had nothing to do and I just had a little time to kill, I was like, fuck it, let me just watch, a dumb action movie. I would have gone to see Snake Eyes, GI Joe Origins, and then the second show being, The Green Knight, which, as you all should know, is probably one of my most highly anticipated shows of the year, right? So,
Right,
yeah, let
right.
me just jump into Snake Eyes first, right? So,
Sure.
well, all right. Well, Ricardo, I'll wait to do synopsis first, right? But I just
Right.
want to start off with this GI Joe movie franchise, right? So, you
Yeah.
know, Transformers came 2007, shut everything down. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. So much great memories from seeing it when it came out in 2007.
Right.
So 2 years later, when we had
Yeah.
the infamous Revenge of the Fallen.
Well, we had
uh,
a writer's strike. We had a writer's strike.
Yes,
But
yes,
yeah,
we
but
did,
still.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Paramount was like, you know what were the Hasbro, toy lineup we have that we can make a film out of, by?
Right.
So they come with G.I. Joe, you know what I mean?
Right.
And for me, I
Perfect.
mean,
Right. Perfect. Right.
you and I, we grew up on G.I. Joe. We
Yeah.
watched the cartoons and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, this was one of those, it's one of those properties though where you know that there were spin-offs that came off like in every like decade, right? So but for the life of you just can't remember like what the titles were, so like with Transformers, for example, you remember Beast Wars, you remember Beast Machines, right?
Yeah.
With GI Joe, I know that there was like some early 90s version of it. I don't remember what it was called. I think it was called GI Joe, right? Not GI Joe, a real American hero, right? But I remember the theme song going, "Have to get tough, yo Joe," and there was a
Right.
thing, Then it was GI Joe Extreme, which didn't last that long, but
Yeah.
I
Anything.
used to
Yeah. No.
watch that. I think it
No.
was
Let me
cool,
tell you something.
you
Every
know.
time they did, yeah, everything in the 90s, they tried to do the extreme versions of everything in the
Yes,
90s. Done like everything that
I
was in the
remember Extreme
80s.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but listen, and I didn't hate it, you know. Like I get why they went in the direction they went to it, but like a lot of it didn't work.
No,
Extreme
you know,
Ghostbusters, G.I. Joe Extreme was like, in my opinion, a massive failure. That I
yeah,
have zero memory of that, and of course, the probably the worst of the bunch that suffered transference from the 80s to the 90s. He-Man, yeah,
boy.
oh,
That 90s version was horrible, yeah.
yeah,
But point is, I mean, not the not all knowledgeable in all things G.I. Joe cartoons, right? And same with the characters themselves, because it's just so much characters, right? In the toy line as well too. I'm familiar with the movie which came out in 1986, the animated film. Which was cool. It was riding off the success, I believe, of Transformers the movie, right? So it's basically like a elongated episode. You know what I mean? It doesn't care if you go into this one completely blind. It's like, no, a series exists. You're going into the show knowing about the series, so you know who Cobra Commander is, you know who Duke
right,
is, you know Sergeant Slaughter, you know who these characters are, right? So we're not gonna stop to tell you who these are. We don't care about what the critics think. It's a GI Joe movie, for God's sake, right? But anyway, right? So 2009, now we get GI Joe: The Rise of Cobra, and I went and see it, and similar to Transformers 4, I found myself like my brain just kind of passed out near the end.
right.
So by the time they went underwater into
It
this
was yeah,
underwater facility, whatever, my brain just tuned out. But why?
yeah,
Because it was just too much style over substance. It
yep.
was just too much. The the,
And
the, the fact that you had the characters dressed
and the style
weirdly.
not even that good.
Exactly. You have
Yeah,
them using these mech suits, and they have people like Marlon Wayans and Channing Tatum running around with mechs, and it's supposed to be like this grand, like awesome scene, and they're running up buildings and shit. When I was watching that, boy, my brain was just like, nah, boy, this is too much, too much. I feed up. Like I literally
yeah.
just kind of
I,
watched
I
the end of the movie with my eyes, like
yeah, I
I was
remember.
sleeping with my eyes open. Basically, I just
Yeah,
couldn't. I couldn't have it.
I remember having some fun with that first film. Right, it had some okay moments. I thought the action was right. I was having fun with it. It only really had one sequence that I liked, which was the accelerator suit thing. It's goofy fun. Like I had goofy fun with it.
Right. Yeah, but
That's about it.
it's too much, but
It's
you know
too
what I mean?
much, and
It's too much. It's too much. So in 2013 though, when G.I. Joe Retaliation came in, right? I remember this was in the early days of me doing like written movie reviews. I gave this a 2.5 out of 5, right? So
right,
I I'm probably one of the few who felt that this was a improvement over the first one, right? But not by
right,
much, right? Case in point, you have Dwayne Johnson, so you know when you bring him in a franchise, it could work, right? But not exactly, you know, because he was forgettable at this. I remember they squeeze in Bruce Willis in this first scene. I was just like, okay,
yeah,
you in
yeah,
this too?
which is
All
done.
right, all right,
And they,
well,
they, 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 they
uh,
try to do a course correction by saying, all right, well, I just make it a little more grounded and less
yes,
sci-fi oriented and something
mm,
like that. But I felt it just felt just kind of half-assed and lazy. It have one sequence that is so stupid, which is, I can't believe I have
is
to
it the
say this.
ninjas?
Well, right before that,
Okay,
the RZA.
that was about to say it, dude.
Oh my God, that was the
When
one of
I
the
saw that, I
worst
was
things.
like, wow. Like,
I
okay,
I was
I
cracking
know
up.
RZA, Kung Fu Flicks. I mean, RZA, we love RZA, right?
Yeah, man, love
Maori
it.
Iron Fist, not a great movie at all, but you know why he do it? Because he's a fan of Kung Fu Flicks. But my God, man, like, all right, like you just had to, like, okay, we thinking about the character of the blind master Dread, right?
Yeah, oh
Who we
God.
will bring up in this film, right? Who would have thought it would have been your RZA Dread? Like, I remember I saw that I laughed. Shit. That was hilarious, like flat out hilarious. I'm a Wu Tang fan, but I laugh at
Yeah,
that shit. But there was a scene around that though involving ninjas and Snake Eyes, and I think Storm Shadow was involved, and they were like like swinging basically off of like these mountainous areas and whatnot, and it was just so dumb. But I was just watching this like,
yeah,
yeah, to me this is like the best scene in the whole movie because of how over the top it was. But yeah,
yeah.
point is, before we get to your thoughts and jumping into Snake Eyes, those two shows were just forgettable. But you know what I mean,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
see me
they
the
fail.
fact that this movie came out, Snake Eyes came out years after Retaliation. It's just like wow, like Paramount, sorry, still believe in this franchise. They still believe this thing could work. Well, okay,
But
well,
you
all
know,
right.
that's the thing how I feel about GI Joe, right? So what I feel about GI Joe is that it's one of those things that I'm not. It's unclear how you have to do it because I still believe in the property, but maybe it's because I'm biased because I was a big GI Joe fan back when I was a kid. I had a lot of those little GI Joe toys that was so intricate and really, with the
Mm-hmm.
rubber band in the waist, and it had all these joints to it, and like I
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
huge. I had a ton of those. Like I had a bunch, and my cousin had like a ton, like a truck ton of them thing,
right.
and so it was a really cool world. It was cool, right? And it's interesting how, like, I'm surprised nobody really pulled it off. And then for this, when I heard that Larry Hama was coming back and he was on set for it, like he was a big consultancy for the stuff. By the way, he came to Trinidad, and I remember asking him a question about where to do to bring back GI Joe proper and whatever it is now. And so to hear him being on set for this new material, I was like, all right, well, I'm pretty excited for this. And then I heard a certain person going to be in it. And I was like, all right, well, yeah, that's the story there. But then anyway, we'll talk about that. So, Snake Eyes is about basically this kid, orphan when his parents, I think dad's murdered. He grew up as an underground martial fighter, and he conceals, we don't know his true identity. He decided to call himself Snake Eyes as a nickname, inspired by, I think, a name, I think, where he was inspired by the guy who was killing some
Yeah,
dice.
the guy.
Dice.
Okay, so you gotta get to the spoilers here, right? So the guy
Right.
who kills his dad, he has these PF dice, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
if dice
Yeah.
games, Sneak Eyes, right? That's
Snake
what it
Eyes,
is,
yes.
right?
Double ones, right? Okay.
I'm gonna bring up I'm gonna bring up the dice in a bit, right? But
Right. So they
go on,
decide that
go on.
they have a big Yakuza boss thing, and they have this whole underground narrative of him going through having to deal with the Yakuza and having to deal with all of this gang stuff, and then he basically goes to a ninja dojo to learn to get initiated in the clan leader and get into the basically the well I forget the actual group, but it's basically this what Snake Eyes, I forget the clan's name, but is where
Okay,
Storm Shadow comes.
it is the, if we got the name wrong, it's the Arashikage.
Right, right.
Arashikage.
Yeah, I will forget. I will forget because again, this come into my brain and then come back out immediately.
Well,
Anyway,
here's the funny thing, right? You saw this like a few weeks ago. I saw this yesterday, and
right.
I am all trying to remember things
Yeah,
which
yeah.
oh,
It rough.
what happened. It's
And
rough.
yeah,
It's rough.
so that's basically what the thing was, and then they basically just they had to go to trials, he had to get through it, and then but the problem is that all of this shenanigans is tied up with Cobra, this international
Cobra, la la
ruthless,
la la
yeah,
la.
this ruthless international corporate organization that you're not too clear where they get their money from, but however, you know, like I say, Bitcoin, maybe, um,
That would have
and
been interesting. That would have been interesting. If
well,
they
yeah,
just threw it
it's
as a like,
if you
hey,
know
you know, that sounded be funny.
if
Yeah,
you know if you know the reality behind Bitcoin, it's actually hilarious. But whatever. Um, yeah, and so it's then the GI Joe and all of this, people come into this. He get caught up in this kind of secret war involving GI Joe and him having to address this guy Tommy, who has to get him, who becomes, well, he effectively becomes Storm Shadow. This is obvious. And yeah, that's his story. It's just him leading up. It's just the origins of it's the Snake Eyes origins. That's what it is. Snake Eyes
yeah.
begin.
It's in the title, pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Snake Eyes
Yeah,
begins. So yeah, that's it. I did not. Let's just say they completely blow this. Talk
yeah.
about blowing this premise. Here's my thing. I think I talked about this on the podcast before. Probably they should have go with Eco Waste as Snake Eyes. Look, I like
And
Henry
Iko
Gould.
always was in the movie,
In the
which
movie.
I
In
honestly
the
forgot. But
movie.
when I see him, I was like, God damn, you could have been this. You could have been Snake Eyes, do you know what I
Right,
mean?
because Snake Eyes, much like okay, in the original, in the 2009 film or whatever, right? They got a top tier martial artist for it, Ray Park, right,
Yeah.
to play
Hmm.
Snake Eyes. Great call, right? Because for him to be bouncing around and dancing around and bump and jumping about the place, you need somebody like that. So that's Iko. Iko could do that nonsense, or maybe even somebody like what's his name, Ang Bakner, um,
Tony Jaa.
yeah,
Yeah.
somebody like
You
that.
know, funny thing is, while I was watching Eco always in the show, I was like, I mean, I'm glad that Eco getting work. I'm glad he getting work, man. But you know, what I mean, like, I'm thinking, like, I just hoping that he doesn't fall in the same camp of Tony Jaa now, where it's like, all right, we need this Asian looking dude to be in a
Yeah,
forgettable martial arts film. Hey, let's pick him, So
yeah.
they're just hoping that it
What?
doesn't
Yeah,
happen to Eco. But yeah.
yeah, and one of the dumb things one thing the dumb things I think is, and I say they completely wasted. This is one of the problems I have with it, and why they completely waste this is because there's what making me mislead me, right? And I don't understand why he was on even on set for this. Why do our origin story in this way? Right? That was a mistake. In my opinion, again, this is just money quarterbacking. But if you had Larry Hammer on set, do Larry Hammer masterpiece, right? Just do that. Larry Hammer has a comic. This is a masterpiece called Silent Interlude, right? It has no words. As far as I know, there's little to
Oh,
no
that
words,
is awesome. I
right?
love that.
All it
Yeah.
is just
Yeah.
straight visual language. And I don't understand. All they had to do was just do Silent Interlude, but the Raid Redemption. Anybody remember the Raid Redemption being like
Yep, yep.
the most
One of the best
amazing,
action films
yeah,
of
the
the
most
decade.
amazing,
That and its
mind-blowing
sequel.
action
Yep.
movies. Yeah, just do that. And you had Rama right there. You had Iko Uwais. And the thing is, with Snake Eyes, you don't need to see his face. So that is one of the big problems with this. It falls into all of the trappings of a typical Hollywood thing. One of the big trappings of Hollywood is the actor, you had to see his face, and you had to see the actor face a good chunk of time. And that is why he
As you bring up that, what's so ironic, right? So Dread, which everybody
yeah,
me as a point in time used to see was sort of like a ripoff of the Raid Redemption.
right.
At least they didn't show Judge Dredd's Carl Urban's face there. Unlike the 95 Judge Dredd, of course, which
Yeah, you had to see his
is
face all the time.
Stallone and the I am the law and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Point
it's
is,
what
you don't need to show the face for the movie to work,
yeah,
right? The
yeah.
same.
And that's the whole point of Snake Eyes. You just never see Snake Eyes fucking face. So I don't understand what is all of this now. Like you have a story. Look, I like Henry Golden, right? In my opinion, he should be Superman, right? But I don't
Huh.
think Superman
Okay.
or
Okay.
at least Conan Kong, right? Or one of them now.
Right.
But I I don't understand why they had the way they do this story. There's so much extra bullshit that I did not care about. All of that backstory, don't care about it. Don't care about none of that. None of this interesting. Sorry to say it. None of that's interesting because, especially in the world of G.I. Joe, none of that's interesting in my opinion. I don't understand what is they trying to do or say with this. When it finally gets going, it's like, all right, well, it had some decent action in this. Like they rip off that thing that I think they had that thing in this that they also rip off in John Wick Part 3. Was the name of that movie again? Is that shot
Or the villainous. That's
right?
the okay. We have to have the
Motorcycles,
characters on motorbikes, and they
and they
have
have machetes.
katanas.
But
Right.
that
Right.
right,
Yeah.
right, machetes or some kind of
Right. Yeah.
some.
Machetes or katanas. Yeah.
But it basically is just something they're swinging, and there's that famous scene with the camera going through the motorcycles. That shot now. They had that same bullshit here. I'm like, dog, you could have do something more interesting with this shit. They wasted it, completely wasted it. I was bored out of this. I gotta say, I watch it and I forget what I watch it. I will forget I watch it, and I'm like, all right, well, that happened. Moving on. And I was just so underwhelmed with this whole thing. I really thought they could have done more with it. It kind of had the same problem with that Mortal Kombat movie. Like, why you make these decisions? Like you couldn't get somebody to sit down and work this out better. You'd think they'd have smarter calls, and it does make a bunch of weird and dumb calls in this. In my opinion, it doesn't work. It's pretty bad. Start over. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree though. As someone who literally watched this a day ago, this is quite forgettable, boy. And for me, you know what I mean? Like okay, so what it's trying to do, emphasis on trying, is trying to blend these action oriented genres, right? So
Yeah.
you have a bit of yakuza, right? It's like 70s yakuza films, right? They go in for like real grimy shit. You know, characters running each other down with machetes and swords in the streets and stuff like that, right? So if they might pull out a gun and shoot a man in the face, whatever it is, right? Those kind of films, right? And then they want to go for 80s style ninja films. So it's like, okay, well, these ninjas, right? Who all these great skills and all that kind of stuff, right? Um, and then you want to, of course, incorporate the GI Joe stuff, which there's a point literally where you forget that it's a GI Joe movie. I think like halfway
Right.
into the movie, it's like, oh yeah, it's a GI Joe movie because
Yeah.
not only do they mention Cobra, but they actually bring in Mija O'Hara, aka Scarlet, who is
Right.
played by McGill Samara Weaving. I was like, oh, you in this too, right? And then they
Right.
have Baroness, who is played by McGill to be Ursula Delgado, right? So it's
Right.
like, okay, okay, okay. But still, while you're watching all this, it just feels like this sort of, schlocky 80s ninja samurai yakuza revenge flick, right? And for I was kind of good with it for a while, for a bit, right? But the thing is, like in the back of your mind, you're just kind of wondering, but still, but why? Like why all this? Like what is this all leading up to, right? And it's just because again, it's just the character of Snake Eyes, right? Okay, cool character, remember him for the previous movies, but I couldn't help but just wonder what was the point of all this. So yes, I'll give them credit. It's a very sleek looking film. It looks very good, right? And you could tell they put care into making the fight scenes, dynamic and all that kind of stuff, right? There's some moments where they have to do that unbearable, sorry, shaky cam stuff, especially with a early fight scene involving Snake Eyes and some guy in some fighting pit thing, right? Yeah, that was just inexcusable, right? But yeah, though, like and I was kind of digging the whole idea, like, okay, we've seen the our Shikagi clan, and we get to see how they work and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was really funny though that all right, so because the show don't even give a shit, right? this this is supposed to happen before the first two movies, right? So why, like, when they go to modern times, you say it's present day, right? So I supposed to buy into everything that's going on in this show happening right now, but where now does the other two films lie in all of this? It's almost like they just kind of want to do like a soft reboot, but not soft enough.
Right.
Like it's almost like the other two shows didn't exist. So this is like the real stuff. Like you're really gonna get GI Joe stuff, but the other two shows exist. So where does this all fit in, right? So whatever. But yeah, I thought it was really funny, that in this clan area, right? With this oh gosh, with the Japanese buildings and the architecture and all that kind of stuff, and in a world where characters, like it's the modern world now, so it's guns and all that kind of stuff. You have guards who still rocking spears and swords and whatnot, right?
Right.
But when there's a threat that happens, and there's literally a threat that happens, around the beginning of the third act, they don't have any guns, right? It's all we have our katanas because it's all about honor, right? But you
Yeah.
literally have a villain who comes in now with this MacGuffin, this mystical rock, and he's like blasting people away. Not even blasting people away. And like even that itself is a really dumb power because you're thinking, okay, like the power is going to come from the rock itself. So just in a nutshell, the clan has this rock, so bad guy, Yakuza guy wants it, right? But when he does acquire it now, he literally aims it at someone and they blow up, right? They just kind of disintegrate into fire and ash, right?
Right.
Remember, it's a PG-13 movie, right? So you can't show no blood, right? But yeah, so he just kind of walking around just aiming it at people. People blow it up. Boom, 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 right? So when they actually get to the actual leader of the group, it's this like old, well, lady, right? This grandmother, right? Character, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't even do that. He just like just blowing up things around her, and then he has to kidnap her and then talk to her like, "Oh well, I was a former member of your group and you betrayed me, blah blah blah. Now I'm gonna kill you." That's just enough time for the heroes to come and do their thing, right? Even a moment now where Tommy gets the thing now. I have to spoil this one, right? So Tommy gets the thing now, and while he's trying to kill, while he aims it at the villain now, you see this explosion, right? And the villain like literally escapes. So you think, oh shit, he dead. It's like, nope. He just escapes though. Why? Because yeah, Snake Eyes need to be the one to deliver the final blow, right? So I'm gonna get to the end itself in a bit and why I do it, right? So right. So action scenes, fine, right? You know, it looks good and everything like that, right? There's a great little action scene that takes place in this like rainy area, like neon lit and all that kind of stuff. It looks really good and all that kind of stuff, right? And I mean Henry Golding, he sells the character of Snake Eyes, so I just have like an issue with him. I didn't like the idea that he just basically a spy for the Yakuza. So he just kind of gets, he wins Tommy's favors, and all of a sudden he's with his group, but he's like trying to get this item for his boss, basically, if you want to say that, right? And he try to do the whole conflicted thing, like, oh well, this is not for me. You guys work for Cobra. I don't like what you're doing with your exoterrorism. No more with this, right? But still, it's just like, dude, but you're still a spy, Joe. Like, like in other words, he like you think that the character, because he starts off bad or starts off kind of crooked or morally in doubt or whatnot, he should kind of become good at the very end there. But it doesn't really play out like that. So what happens in the end is that basically Tommy is chastised now for actually using the sort of rock now to use
Yeah.
for his basically to try to kill someone. Like you're not supposed to do that, right? So
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like
No,
ousted for the
they're
group now.
trying to do this weird like honor culture stupidness, no? Like
Yeah, you're right. And it's
to
all
make
about
no
honor, right?
sense. That
Honor,
don't make no
honor,
sense
honor.
because we just see you using guns before. So like, why
Exactly.
with double
So
standard?
yeah, right, exactly. So like the show itself couldn't even like make sense of its own logic as far as honor goes, right? So you have characters rocking swords, well, katana, sorry, but yet, I mean, we live in a world where characters have guns and access to guns and all that kind of stuff, right? So you dig at the horrors because he do this thing to try to save you, right? As in the old woman from dying, right? So yeah, he's pretty much demoted now, and he gets pissed off now, and his meltdown was hilarious in my opinion. Like no disrespect to Andrew Koji who plays Tommy though, but
Yep,
the delivery was so it was
dumb.
high school theatrical
Yeah,
bad.
it,
It
it,
was it was bad.
that's another thing. This movie was like shockingly sloppy, and amateurish at
Acted
times.
wise.
No, amateurish in general. Like, just I felt some of the editing just felt off. It's like, what happened there? Why a cut there? What? I don't know. The whole thing just felt really, really like just amateurish and sloppy at times overall, like across the board. Acting was kind of bad. But it wasn't like whatever. I don't expect anything big from movies like this. But then,
Right, right.
but they get good people in it. Like some are even on them. So it's like, all right,
Yeah.
you could. They had their moments, but like I don't know what they're trying for, what they're going for with this, but like it didn't line it up particularly well.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about that quickly, right? So here's the problem, right? So, all right, fine. As a fan of Asian action cinema, right? I could kind of get by. Okay, you're doing homage to 80s ninja films, to 70s yakuza films, to 90s martial arts revenge films. Okay, fine, fine, all right, all right. But halfway you want to bring in the GI Joe stuff, so now you gotta remember, oh, it's a GI Joe stuff. Sure, right? And then I believe up to that moment, no, there was no instance of like fantasy or anything like that or sci-fi until these fuckers now literally pull up this screen now and seeing, oh, this is how Cobra acts and all that kind of stuff. They're like, but you have all this high technology, and none of the guards have any guns or any weaponry of that sort. Anyway, right? So this moment literally took me out of the show, Dread. So in the final test, right? So the blind master, who isn't played by Rizza, thank God, he's played by Peter Mensah. If you
Yeah.
remember him, he's that guy from 300 and well, pretty
Right,
much
right,
all the
right, 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 right.
Spartacus
Yeah, yeah,
series.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember him. Yeah, right,
Yeah,
right.
he just have this tough face there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so, perfect casting there. You think they would have him as, you think they would have cast him in Retaliation instead of Rizza, but whatever, right? So, yeah. So basically, it's him in this pit, right? So sorry, Snake Eyes had to be in this pit, right? He had to sort of empty his feelings or some shit like that, right? And you literally see, you're literally seeing three giant anacondas, right?
Right.
And no, like I did not see that coming a mile away, right? I was just like, what?
Right.
Like I'm not sure because okay, so up to that point the show trying to blend this sort of gritty realism, but not too gritty, of course. It's light gritty, right? And
Yeah.
then you drop this thing on me big sneaks all of a sudden, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Right.
but what? What? You know what I mean? And the payoff, because yes, they actually go back in the pit to kill off the bad guy. That was just dumb in my opinion. But yeah, from there, you know, I was like wondering, okay, so they go in this fantasy route. They have the sci-fi high-tech routing because it's G.I. Joe and
Is it that
Cobra.
you're
It's
right,
just
exactly.
too
The only
weird,
time it didn't blow
mismatched.
my mind. It didn't blow my mind because like, oh, it's Cobra. Okay, fine. They're doing the Cobra thing. Whatever.
Yeah, I understand, Trey, but have a balance, Trey. Like, for the moment, you all say present day, and you just, like, I just kind of have to forget about the two shows. That's where the show loses you, though. It just
Yeah.
has a lack of focus in terms of what it's trying to be. It's okay if you want to pay homage to these old genres. I mean, I'm a fan of those, but still, it's a G.I. Joe movie. It's in the title. Like, make up all your mind, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and last before I get to read it though, so because of what happened with Tommy being ousted though, well sorry, demoted, now out of revenge he becomes Storm Shadow, right? And before he becomes Storm Shadow, before he does the call me Storm Shadow, right? Which by the way, why was this in the trailer? Why was this in the trailer, right? So this scene and the final moment where you see Snake Eyes become Snake Eyes actually put on the suit and all that kind of stuff was spoiling the trailer there. But the
Yeah.
point is, this is the only time you see Snake Eyes in the outfit thread, and it just kind of comes off as,
Yeah.
"Hey, well,
Fine.
sure you were a spy, and sure you tried to kill us, and you kind of technically brought your boss over, and he killed a majority of we." But at least you're that Storm Shadow so cool. Here's a
Yeah.
suit. And he's all like, I promise I'm gonna bring back Storm Shadow back to you.
Yeah.
But does
So
he ever did he never do that in the other two movies? So as anyway, so in short, the show is clearly like trying. It's clearly a soft reboot, but in the worst way, because you have to kind of justify what happened before, right? But the show really treats itself as, no, we really started over. So hopefully in the next film, whatever origin story it'll be, we will see the continuation of how things play out. But I mean, just like X-Men Origins Wolverine, I don't think you will get another origin story after this. I
it,
highly doubt you'll get another GI Joe movie after this way because of this how ultimately pointless it is, really, So, to be fair, you could kind of watch this, like, if you have nothing to do on a Saturday night, you just want to watch some dumb action flick, you could put it on and watch it, Dread. But sorry, because it's G.I. Joe, because it's a G.I. Joe character, Dread, you just kind of watch this like, well, no, this kind of feels like y'all just had this watered out script from ages ago that was collecting dust, and y'all just slap on a G.I. Joe character and call it a G.I. Joe movie, but it really does feel like something else entirely. But the show has to go out of its way ever so often to kind of remind guys, to remind viewers, no, it is actually a GI Joe movie, right? So here's snakes, here's giant snakes, right? Because cobras, right? Even though it's not cobras, but you get my
yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
Here's instance of Cobra here and Storm Shadow there and all these things, but it just felt like just identity crisis, just a big identity crisis for me. So rated wise, strong two to like 2.5
Yeah,
out
and
of five.
I
Should
thought
get
this
into
was
this.
rubbish. It because again they had to me they had an easy layup, and they didn't do the easy layup in my opinion. The easy layup is do silent interlude but read redemption. That's all they had to do. Get Garrett Evans or Garrett Edwards, who's as confusing.
Evans.
Yeah, get Garrett Evans, game to direct, get some good action director or somebody like that, right? And just do that. You have Eco always. Ugh. 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't believe you with that three out
Yeah,
of 10 way.
yeah, 3 out
Yeah,
of 10.
it just feels so painfully pointless shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, if I'm just watching this show and seeing things play out, and I'm just like, all right, cool, but why though? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a silent ninja, shit, and you try to give this guy a face and a voice and
Yeah,
motivation.
stop
Oh,
bullshit.
last thing last, before we move on, last thing last, right? This okay, so the idea though with him with our hero working with the bad guy is that the bad guy pretty much promises that he will give the because they actually have the actual guy who killed his dad. They have him prisoner, right?
Yeah,
So that guy in particular, he has a thing where he has this pair of dice, right? So in the moment where his father dies, though, it's just like roll the dice, right? So he actually rolls and it comes snake eyes, right? It's like, oh, snake eyes, well, that's too bad for you. Shoots him, right? And then there's literally a moment now where our hero now confronts the guy who killed his dad now, and you're thinking, oh shit, you gonna stab him now? It's just like, no, pull out these same two dice, right? It's like roll, and there's like a cringy moment where he says roll. I'm like,
yeah,
bro, what the fuck, what? And he rolls it down, and it ends up snake eyes again, Chad. So I had this in the back of my mind the first time I saw it, the first time I saw those dice, and then I saw it again, and like it makes sense. Those shit was loaded, right?
yeah. Dumb.
It was loaded dice, Chad.
Yeah,
It
dumb.
was
Whatever.
loaded dice. So think about this, guys. All this whole revenge thing now to get the guy who killed my dad, all stems from loaded dice, Chad. Think about that for a sec.
Yeah, whatever. I don't. Yeah, dumb. Whatever. I don't care.
It dumb, right? So moving on. So let's get to something better now. At least in my opinion, the Green Knight, right? So I will kick things off as to what the show is about, and then
Right.
well,
All right.
you
So
can.
before we mention that, just a quick thing is that apparently Spider-Man trailer leak. But had
Serious.
anybody see it? Yeah. However, moving on. So
No,
we'll see it. We'll hopefully
dude,
see
but
it. We'll hopefully see it by the time this comes out. You know,
yeah, well,
tomorrow.
we literally called this out like in the episode earlier, and we said,
Yeah.
we
Somebody
could
leak
get
it. Somebody
this,
leak
you know. So okay, cool. Something to look forward to, man. So yeah, in a nutshell, what the Green Knight is about, right? So it's based off of the poem Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, right? Which is a poem that I am unfamiliar with. And I know a lot of
it.
people go into this movie will be unfamiliar with
I
as well.
I am look I know my literature, but like a lot of literature stuff I just pass by me. Like I never read what I call it by that famous Norse mythology story. Um Beowulf. Never read that.
I
Um
never, I never read it. I saw the movie. I forgot
right,
about it immediately afterwards.
right. But you get my
You know,
point. I never read a lot of these like classic stuff. So this is a classic from what I understand. Never read it. And I still didn't read it after watching this movie. I kind of didn't care, even though I think this movie is pretty good.
right. I actually remember reading. Oh gosh, I forgot what King Arthur book it was, but it was just basically all these tales about King Arthur and Excalibur and
Yeah,
meeting Morgan Le Fay for the first time. And it was just like that though. But like for the life of me, I just can't remember any story about Gawain. You know what I mean? And just to kick things off, Gawain is actually the nephew of King Arthur, right? And
yeah,
actually the son of Morgan Le Fay, who I didn't even know was in this movie. Actually, she played by
yeah.
the great Sarita Chowdhury, right? So I like that the movie itself kind of justify why you have Indian based British actor played Gawain, right?
Yeah,
So it makes
yeah, no
sense,
one
right?
cares. Yeah,
Yeah, no, nobody cares ultimately, but still to those like,
Yeah.
well, why is he in this movie? Look at how he looks. He should be a Caucasian guy, but whatever, right? So yeah, we pretty much see the type of guy he is. Like he just kind of doesn't really care about nightly stuff. He's just kind of just there, just kind of doing this thing. The show actually opens with him in a brothel with this particular woman. Well, her name is Essel, who is played by Miguel Alicia Vegada, who actually plays two roles. And the funny thing is, I was like watching the face, like I know she's there, but then you have another character who shows up, like, well, wait, like, so Esther was somebody else, but no, it's actually the same person, right? But anyway, so Christmas morning, he's called to to the round table, right? And he's actually, like the king is just like, what, come true, man. I mean,
Yeah.
be with us. You know what I mean? So while all this is going on, and he feeling nice and all that kind of stuff. The titular Green Knight actually shows up. It's just this
Right.
weird, swamp thing, demonish looking
Yeah.
knight who shows up, and he just issues his challenge. Basically,
Yeah.
any one of you just strike me, and then 1 year hence I will basically come and do the same. Well, sorry, you have to find me, and I will do the same thing to you, right? So, it's a great setup actually with terms of Gawain's character. He's just like, what, like I'm no knight and all that kind of stuff, but I like how everybody else is like, well, we don't know. Actually a funny moment where Arthur says, "I would do that, but my knees, are weak, right? Whatever, right?" So Gawain is just like, all right, I need to prove myself in front of all these people. So he goes in, he lays the death blow. Sorry, he actually chops off the Green Knight's head. And then, well, to his surprise, no, the Green Knight actually picks up his own head and says 1 year hence and rides off
Right.
laughing, right? So cut to a year later now, and everybody kind of just treats him as this sort of legend. You know what I mean? You slayed the Green Knight. You know what I mean? You're a legend, right? But he doesn't really feel like it, and he doesn't see it outright, but you can
Exactly.
tell he doesn't feel like it.
He just kind of a dipshit if you think about it. Like,
He is.
yeah.
I want to bring that up, right? But yeah, in a nutshell, now he has to go on this quest because it's just like, well, yeah, yeah. I mean, he laid the challenge out to you, so bro, you gotta do it. You're a knight now, right? So do the thing, right? We just follow him on this adventure now, well, adventure of sorts. And I guess similar to the poem, it's broken up into chapters. Now you see like these stylized text, right? Text that looks very very Renaissance like in a way. And throughout this journey, he just encounters different characters with different motives, all that kind of stuff. And it's a very dreary and dark journey now, and it's all about it's just really about the journey. You know what I mean? What he learns along the way, as opposed to his destination. Facing the Green Knight and ultimately his destiny, right? So, um, my thoughts on this, right? So just to get this out of the way, it's from E24, right? So if you're familiar with E24, you know the type of films that they push,
Yeah.
right? They really push these sort of mid to high budget art films, right? They really go to the way to make art films, right? But great art films, in my opinion. Some of the best films I've seen for the past decade, right? Like The Witch and Midsummer,
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? So, like I knew going into this, I was going to get that, right? And they really go out of the way to make this as artsy as possible, right? But I would say it kind of writes this thin line of, okay, people might watch this and find this to be very pretentious, head up his own ass in terms of what it's trying to do and see. But like other people might just kind of look at this and be like, yeah, it's weird, it's artsy, but it's supposed to be that way, but it's done in a way because that's how the story, I guess, needs to be told, right? That's what it is. One thing I love about the show here is that it kind of just says right out the bat that the author is unknown, right? So it's by anonymous. And I like the idea that, okay, well, different sources may have added to the overall story that we're seeing here, but in a way, David Lowery, who directs and writes who wrote this film actually, you can tell like he's drawing from that now, but he's not exactly adapting it word for word. Like
Right.
it's pretty much the same story, I guess. I never read it, I don't know. But you can tell he's putting his own spin on it, right? And the spin that I got from it though, because I kind of just did like a quick read of what the story is about, right? So in a way, yes, Gawain is a dipshit, right? Yeah, he does not exhibit the qualities of what a knight is, and even if you don't know the qualities of what a knight is, you've probably seen movies with knights going on quests and all that kind of stuff to slay dragons and save damsels in distress, right? But this one does not play out like that at all. It's just basically him always being reminded you're no knight, right? But you can kind of understand, given the character who he is, why he's on this quest, why he feels he needs to keep going forward, even though he goes through a lot of shit. Case in point, the fox car, the fox that was in the trailers and stuff like that. The fox doesn't even say anything until he reaches a point where he's like this close to going to the green end, and then the fox come and say, "Dude, like, don't go, Dre. Like, this is gonna be dangerous for you, Dre." And Gwen's like, "No, leave me alone. Bye, fuck off," and all that kind of stuff, right? That he actually goes, right? That's the last time you see him. So for me, how I saw it, right? You can come in when you're ready, right? How I saw it is it's a deconstruction of the whole knight on a quest kind of story, right? So he is a knight kind of, but he's not exactly the knight that you would expect, right? And just the way how the movie is presented, how it looks and all that, it's far from the high fantasy stuff that you would see. You would know like from, 80s fantasy movies, right? When that genre was at its peak, right? At its apex, right? Here it just feels dreary and just muddy and dark and whatnot though. But just appropriate in my opinion. This kind of and also what I really love about the show here is how it kind of shows it is sort of like uber realism, like, oh, this is how the story would have played out. Like, sounds like the Game of Thrones approach to like,
Right,
oh
right, right.
well, if this really did happen, this is how character A would have played out. This is how character B would have reacted and all these kind of things. It plays out just like that to extent, right? But it also includes these fantasy moments. So, it just kind of keeps things in this, sort of how to say, like, this balanceness. So it's realism in a sense of the time that the story is set and the fantasy that you'd expect in the show, in a story like this. But it's an art film, right? So they're gonna go for weird as well, right? Um, some things are just flat out like open to interpretation. Like case in point, the giants, right? There's a
Right.
shot of like giants that just show up. Like I don't really know what it means. Maybe it has
Yeah,
something to do with death,
that's what I say. That's what I
perhaps.
say with this
You know,
movie. It okay. So remember, this guy did Ghost Story, right?
yeah,
Uh,
Eagle Story, which
right. Which I
was
like.
yeah, I enjoyed as well too.
Yeah,
It's a very very deep and flat out
yeah,
depressing, but
yeah.
appropriately depressing
But
meditation on death in the
but
afterlife.
the thing with the thing with Ghost Story is that it lines up better. And okay, so I don't know if Ghost Story was a book or anything like that, but the Ghost Story lined up narrative wise better. No? Whilst this I felt was a little too vague. Like if look, I never read the poem, so I don't know enough about it. But I felt stuff like that just didn't work for me. Like I just was look visually, it looked good. Can't be mad at that. All of that looked great. But I think that's the only way I could judge this, to be honest. No. I couldn't find myself like lining up the narrative. It's like what I was supposed to be looking for exactly. I had problems with that. However,
Right, right. I understand too, and I would say because I know a lot of people preach this a high heaven, right? This to me is like a flaw, but I don't want to say is a flaw in itself though, where you're just kind of wondering, okay, like I say, what are we looking for? What is all lead up to, right? But how I see it at the moment, right? Because just to get this out of the way, this is a show that I definitely want to see again, and I feel that with more viewings, I'm gonna enjoy this a lot more. So I could kind of see this as a classic in the making, right? But
yeah,
it's one of those shows that will get better with more viewings, right?
no,
It's
no,
it's that it's that.
it's no from a pure like visual language perspective, it's great. Like I can't be mad at none of that. But
Yeah,
because I
yeah, no,
can't,
I understand
because
visually, but talk
yeah,
about story as well, eh? But go on.
I don't know. Like I really don't know if I had to I had to sit down and actually read that whole thing in its entirety to make sense of it, I suppose. But
Right,
okay,
right.
yeah,
Okay, so what I'll try to explain myself without rambling, right? And me get a little minor spoilers, right? So what the show is trying to do, right? It's sort of showing you again this deconstructing the whole night on a quest thing, right? So the character of Going, right, played excellently by Dev Patel. I love the fact that you could tell that this guy is just out of his element here. He just kind of doing this because he know he have to, and this is the world that he's in. So he pretty much put himself in this situation, so he have to solve it on his own.
right,
So he doesn't even like fight anyone. You know what I mean? Well, okay, in the quest itself, he doesn't even fight anyone. He actually gets robbed. Actually, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
see it coming to him, but it's just like,
Yeah, that was
gosh,
he noticed.
gosh, right? Like
He
you
real
dropped the
noticed.
ball, you dropped the ball, right?
Yeah, he
Uh,
real.
he he goes off on this random like errand basically for this ghostly character who's played by Erin Kellyman, who I didn't
Right,
expect to see in the show. She was in oh gosh, she played Kali in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like I
right, right,
just
right,
saw the
right.
face and I heard the voice like, yeah, that's you, right? Um and then I'll talk about this later on now, where he runs into this lord and his lady basically. Well, the lady is played by Alicia Vikander, and the lord is played by Joel Edgerton. Right? He's always a guy that he's just be so deep in his characters, he's kind of forget. Oh shit, it's Joel Edgerton, right? But anyway,
Yeah,
right? So it's really like him exhibiting what it means to be a knight, virtue and all that kind of stuff, without kind of like him kind of realizing that this is what he has to do now. And it kind of hit me with the moment where he actually meets the Lord and Leader, right? Because I was just kind of wondering, okay, like what going on here? Like he just kind of run into these people just so, and what happens without spoiling too much is that the lady tempts him, right? So she kind of has this mysticism about herself, and she's trying to tempt him, basically, like trying to seduce him, basically. But he has to stay virtuous, and they set that up very well now because well of the girl that he's in love with, Essel, right? So he's given this what is it that he get by he's given this girl now, right? This green girl, right? And visually they just kind of show how he's able to how to say how to say not block himself but kind of ward off her advances, her sexual advances, basically. It's very artsy, it is very like blatant in your face with it, but I get where
yeah,
they're
yeah.
coming from, right? But but I would imagine if it was any one of the other nights, they would have just given to that so quick, right? But it's all about him kind of learning what it means to be a knight and what it means to be virtuous and all that good shit, right? So when it reaches to the end now, when he actually faces the Green Knight, there's moments where it's like, oh well, I don't want to get my head cut off, right? And it makes sense why he doesn't want to do that, right? But then you get this moment that caught me completely by surprise. So basically, it's this vision that he has. This is where he becomes king, right? So, King Arthur dies, all that kind of stuff, right? I also love the fact that, they actually show King Arthur as not so much old, but just weak and withered, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
just time pass. Yeah,
the show really goes out of its way to just kind of demystify, I mean, the whole Arthurian legends and all that kind of stuff, right? So, yeah, he's an old guy, and he talks softly, and it's just like whatever, right? But yeah, basically we see Gawain as king, right? And then as soon as Essel gives birth, he actually like gets rid of her, and well, she gives birth to a boy basically. So he takes the boy, actually like kicks her out there, like literally, and then marries this random noble woman, right? At first I thought it was Erin's character because of the red hair, but it's actually somebody else. You know,
right.
to look good because I'm a king now. I'm not. What am I doing with whores anymore, right? I don't need. I don't. I'm not dealing with that, right? And it's set up very well too because like you're wondering, okay, why is why is Gawain's mother out of the picture, right? She's literally like locked in this room, and ever so often she comes out to check on her on her son. But it's like, oh well,
Right.
she's a witch, so that's why that. So it's that whole thing there. You know what I mean? How they treat not so much women, but women of a certain character. That's all I'll say, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like I was getting all of that like subtext stuff. I was like,
yeah,
yeah, but
yeah, yeah.
I don't know
Right.
like what to read from it in terms of like, hey, whatever.
Right,
Eh,
right, right. So,
yeah,
we wrap it up, right? So yeah, so montage caught me completely by surprise, though. It is
yeah,
really weird, though, but it is because you're thinking, oh, this is how the movie's supposed to end because you see bits of it in the trailer, but it's like, no, this is what would happen if if he isn't virtuous, if he just doesn't, if he does that fulfill his end of the bargain now. You know what I mean? He goes back. He's corrupt. They kind of see he's corrupt, and then he
yeah,
eventually dies, right? And that's all we'll see, right? So he sees this, and literally he sees light, and he understands. Well, no, I can't be this way. So look, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to do, right? So it's like that, right? Right? You just think right off the bat. oh wait, so all this is just to show that he had to get his head chopped off. That's it. But I don't see it like that, right? I more see
Yeah.
it as in terms of the legend, because it's set up early on that, oh, you know what I mean, if you do something incredible, you know what I mean,
Hmm.
you become a legend and people will tell stories about you. Like King
Right.
Arthur in particular asks Gawain to tell me a story, and he's like, I tell me a story of yourself. It's like, I have no stories to tell. So you kind of understand the motivation why he would, do this thing now, because he wants to be remembered, right? And you see like little bits of, oh, a little foreshadowing, if you will, with this puppet play thing that goes on, with the legend of Gawain and how he killed the Green Knight, but eventually the knight comes and decapitates him, right? So
Yeah.
kind of alludes to what will happen, right? So it's, to me, how I saw it is just that whole idea of how would a guy in this world want to be remembered. So I'm going about this thing, but hopefully if I do this thing, I'll become remembered, right? But he becomes remembered if you think about it, right? But it's just in a way that he just didn't expect, right? So you kind of just watch it, say like, oh, this is like this grand journey that he goes through to kind of understand that, yeah, my story is not like everyone else's, but it's a story that will be told. You know what I mean? So that's how I kind of see, the narrative plays out, right? It's very open to interpretation, but that's how I see it. So it's not really so much about what the point of all this is. It's just how in time will this character be remembered? Will he
Right.
be remembered as a coward? Will he remember as someone
Right.
who just kind of rushing quick and does something without thinking straight, right? Or is it just someone who just kind of realizes like, look, like up to now, my life didn't really have any purpose. Like there wasn't shit going on in my life, so I might as well do this thing, and we just see how things play out afterwards, right? So that's how I see it. This sort of existential vibe, to it, right? But as you see, right, just to wrap up, visually, this is a stunning film. This is one of the best looking films I've seen all year, bar none.
Yeah.
This is what the people is gonna go back and just study. Yeah. So for me, I was just saying, there's lots of desktop wallpaper shots in this movie. There's
Yeah.
so much shots, just so exquisite, or so well done, right? The direction the show goes is very unpredictable. I know for some it will just be like, but why though, But again, it's based off of anonymous sources, so you're not sure if this. So I just kind of assume this is how the story was told, but David just kind of took his the director just have a little creative liberty there, so he kind of wants to keep it in that way where it's like, oh well, maybe this was part of it, or maybe someone added this part later on in the year, years on in centuries later on,
Yeah. Yeah.
so he kind of keeps it that sort of irregular narrative, right? And yeah, I mean that's a really bold move, right? Not say that it entirely works though, but I thought it was bold though. I like the fact that yeah, it's just how the story was passed on, right? That's another theme, the passing on of a story. So maybe these things happen, maybe they didn't, maybe the giant stuff wasn't meant to be in the film, but maybe it was, so he just kind of keeps it open like that, right? Performance wise, everybody did their thing, but it's really Dev Patel who holds the show on his shoulders, like literally, right? Um, didn't expect to see Alicia Vikander play two roles in this. That really caught me by surprise, though. I actually loved actually Ralph Innocent, who plays the Green Knight. I thought that he, had the presence every time that, right? So yeah, as a whole though, I enjoyed this, but not in the way that I expected it, right? It's similar to like how I felt when I saw Blade Runner 2049 for the first time, right? Going in with expectations high, but coming out like, nothing played out the way I expected to, But I still enjoyed it and appreciated it for
Right.
how different it was and how unique it is. And for me, yeah, this is one of the most unique films I've seen all year. And um I just like how bold it was in this scene. You know what? We gonna be artsy with it. We gonna be John Borman at times. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna borrow a little bit from Excalibur. There's actually a shot in the last part of the montage, the vision, sorry, that eerily echoes the end of Zardos. That's all I'll say.
Okay. Right.
How I remember that though is just because that was like the only scene that really like clicked with me. Everything else was just trash, but that ending of Zardos really stood out to me. But whatever, right?
Right.
Um, And it's one that people will watch and be like, this is just artsy fartsy stuff and just a bunch of weird stuff for the sake of weirdness. And in a way, it is. Like, I'm not gonna say it isn't. I'm not gonna go out of my way to defend and say, no, all this stuff has meaning and all that stuff. No, it's artsy fartsy stuff, right? But it's great artsy stuff, I would say, right? But again, because it's an adaptation of a story that must have evolved for centuries now, it feels like that. So I trust that what I've seen in this movie is like what was in the actual poem itself, right? Or maybe it isn't. I don't know. Me, I'll do my little research on it. And I actually do want to learn more about people's take on what happens in the movie, the actual poem itself, and things like that. You know what I mean? So I like that the show kind of opens up this new weird world, of fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Um, but for me personally, this is one of the most memorable. This is going to be one of the most memorable films of this year, though. And for me, this is one that's going to get better with time, though. I think that David Laurie outdid himself with this movie. Not saying that is perfect, but not this is something that at least you should experience at least once. But
Right.
for me, I just want to see this again. But I really can't wait. So for me, strong 4, a very very light 4.5 out of 5, man. You can expect this to show up as best of. It's not going to be top 10. Let you all know that one time, or
Right.
maybe it will. Who knows? If I give it
Yeah,
another viewing, for sure,
we'll
right?
see. We'll see.
Yeah,
It's one of those things I just sit down with, to be honest, because I
exactly,
watch it.
exactly.
I watch it. I just like, okay, it's just pure visuals. I kind of get what they're trying to go for, but it not tying me into it particularly well. So whatever. But
Yeah, yeah,
I still give it a decent score for myself. So it's like, all right.
right. And last, and you can just close things off, right? Last, right? You really had to applaud 824 and David Laurie and the cast and crew for even making a movie like this, Dread.
Yeah.
Because it like takes 80s fantasy, but it takes like 70s art house films and cult films, and just kind of mixes it up in this like beautiful, dreamy, weird fantasy that just does not play the way you expect at all. This is not going to be for everyone. I know for sure some people might find this thing to be pretentious and just art house bullshit, but I don't see it like that.
No.
It's
No, it was
something.
fine.
It's about something, right?
Yeah.
Not everything is going to click, and with films like this, you shouldn't expect that, right? But that's the beauty of movies like this. The more you watch it, and as time pass, which I hope what this one does, you kind of a little bit more and you see things in a different way. So, yeah, this is a potential classic in the fantasy genre. Just seeing that one time, but yeah, I mean, if you're curious, I mean, definitely check this out though. But if you just look at this like, nah, I just don't get this. This is for me. Then yeah, probably it is. But if you're the adventurous type of movie watcher, sorry, film viewer, yeah, I strongly recommend checking this movie out. So
Right.
yeah, any final thoughts?
No, yeah, I'm not really changing my opinion about it. I'd give it, I'd let it marinate, as they say.
Yeah, it's that type of show. You really had to sit down with it afterwards and think about it, right? So yeah, it's just such a fascinating movie. You don't see movies like this out there. So yeah, points to 824 for another potential classic on the hands, man, for sure.